Hi, we're here with ALisa Starkweather. She is a visionary at several fronts. They all have to do with visions that came to her for women's initiatives. And these initiatives range from women's belly and wombs conferences to Priestess Path apprenticeship to Women in Power initiative and Daughters of Earth gathering, as well as most recently the Red Tent Temple movement. We'll ask her a lot more about these initiatives and how she's founded them and brewed them. Thank you, ALisa, for being here. So you talk about these visions of initiatives. Say how these visions come to you and how you conceive these initiatives.
That's a great question. I'm not sure from a linear place whether these things can be known, but I'm sure that we do know them. I talk about it being the little voice that talks to me. Lately I sometimes say, I wish you'd talk to more people.
Stop bothering me.
It's happening though. I do think it is. But I have done a lot of my own personal growth since the time I was very young. And in that place I learned to trust inherently what speaks to me that has some authority to say what's next. And as I've taught women, sometimes it feels like, you know, we're out there saying, guide us, help us, please help us, and you know, we say our prayers or our intentions or you know, whatever we are, we want to be our fullest selves, and yet something will come back to us, some piece of intuition or deep inner knowing of like, follow this. Only the thing is that we get downloaded somehow, and then what happens is we go, oh, no, that can't be right. You know, like, I haven't heard of that, I don't really understand what you're talking about, and it's definitely not me, and I don't think I have the strength or courage to pull that off, and so we tend to possibly reject some of these things that come in. And yet, when we can embrace that, when we get to a place where we're I mean, I've been talking about the word obedient because there used to be an angel cards that you could pick, and they would say, you know, beauty and love. And, and I would get the obedience card when I was younger, and I'd go, oh, I don't like that card. But now that I'm 50, I see that word with so much value, and it's not so much you know, the kind of ways that we used to think in the old paradigm, but it's an internal obedience to that which guides us, to trust it without fail. And as we move towards that, and that's what I did, I moved towards the thing that was in the mystery, it was in the unknown, and yet it you know, I followed a small thread, took action on the vision. You can have as many visions as you want, but with no action, there's nothing that happens. So you take those actions and you start to see more, because it's like pulling a thread, more will come, more things will become clear. You know, in the beginning it might not seem so clear, and then it starts to come, until finally you're in your vision. And that's such a wonderful moment, because you're now inside of something that you thought was possible, you weren't sure, other people joined you, they heard the call to, because you know, we're together here, and then you're in the form. And the form itself, when we don't overplan and overthink, it has its own beauty and its own wisdom too. So once we come together in the vision also will take us deeper. And from that place, I learned to trust. If I could learn to trust one vision, then I would learn to trust another. And then I would learn to trust another, until finally more and more visions in my life, and 5 primary ones that I've been working with. And you know, more are coming, because I think it's time to let go of some and leave them to the other women so that I can be the visionary I am. But I think, you know, I would say to anybody watching that believe in yourself, believe in your intuitive wisdom, believe that we have this power and magnificence to follow our deep knowing, and we will come home. And we're coming home.
Yes. This honoring of your vision, of your voice, of your mystery. And what happens, though, is that women oftentimes take on the buts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
The buts are never going to go away. That's the first thing. To think you're going to out-argue your butt. To think that when the butt is not there, then I will do. An example of that, I remember one time I was at a wedding, and they asked me to sing a song. And it was a wedding where my friend was marrying an African American. Her family was Jewish, and they were literally on two sides of the aisle. And there was some of them had, from his family had said they'd actually never even been in a white community ever in their life. And as I got to singing the song, I thought, I need to speak. And inside there was that but don't. But they only told you to sing the song, and so in that moment, to be the vessel, to allow what is speaking through you, you get these feelings inside that say, don't do that, don't do that, don't speak that, don't overstep that, and you keep following into that courageous place. And so I kept going until finally both sides of this aisle were now intermixed, and there was dancing, and there was singing, and there was hugging, and this great beauty was going on before me, but at the same time, that but never stopped happening. In my head it was like, but they only said just to sing. They didn't tell you you could talk, they didn't tell you could, but of course they were so delighted. So I think whatever we're doing, we're going to need to dance with our butts. Don't even bother stopping them anymore. Just pat them on the shoulder and keep yes, love that. Dance with the butts. Okay.
Well, now to move from this inner wisdom to actually take action from this inner wisdom, is that something particular to the feminine, to female leadership?
I want to understand your question better, because I think whenever we start to polarize men, women, there's so many places we can go with that polarization. Right. I'm not sure I understand. So I want to make sure before I'm out there describing something that is unique to women, that I am also not denying what is innate from every son that has been born through a woman. Right. Every son who has a mother. Because they are, whatever is our power, and our ability to act from an innate place. I trust that our sons, our brothers, our fathers, grandfathers, whether they have been empowered to know that, have that inside them. So I want to be just clear.
Right, absolutely. I think that the sacred feminine definitely is in all human beings, whether men or women. Of course, there's a difference of tapping into it and accessing it. But here, this particular question has to do with women's leadership and how or what are some of the specific qualities to women's leadership.
Okay, well then I think, if I might frame it, it is what is unique and strong in some women that are cultivating this in themselves. Because I think there has been so much with the damage of living in a patriarchal system that we all have that, just like racism. It's in us, even if we deny saying that it's there. So we've got to confront that head on. And the possibility is there for us to cultivate this very unique way. So I would say, and that in some ways, that as women, we've been allowed different than our brothers to be able to have, because it was kind of beaten out of a lot of men to have that sometimes. So if they've been blessed enough to live in families where it's a public affection among them, I mean, going to India, they're holding hands with their good friends. So we just don't want to make this overall. But unique, I think, or definitely present, would be the place that we have that emotional field and that we are, because of our moon times, our blood times, I mean, that is one of the most unspoken elements between us. We, some cultures just hide it altogether. They never speak about it. But, we're cycling with the moon. We're cycling with the earth and the body ourselves. And so that is a unique kind of way. And we've denied that altogether. I mean, we often will change around our moon cycles. Yeah. We change how we feel and how the information goes through us. So on an innate, that's something that we cannot argue with. Women bleed.
Right.
And from that place, there is this way that we are connected to our cycles, to our emotions, to what rides through us, whether we like it or not sometimes. Whether, we can really deny it, be numb, but that is something that's there. Unique is that if you hear women laughing, this is our way to bond with each other. Laughter is our bonding mechanism to actually say, okay, we're with each other. And we've been hearing it in the hallway. And so that is a unique way. We bond our strength through our connections and our relationships. And as I'm sure you might have heard on some of your interviews, the way that they're looking at the fight or flight mechanism. If we weren't strong enough to fight or fly away, then one of our ways of dealing with our power was to actually relate and connect. And I've heard stories, I've taught in Russia, and I've heard stories that when things got very bad there, that it was the women, when all of the economics fell away, and when we were just down to like who has power here, it was the women, of course, that went and found who could do what for who, so that it could go to somebody in need, and that there was a whole interrelational piece that was very, very important in terms of who has power. That is very unique, I think, to women. They're looking at how to think of the whole. And of course, you've probably also heard through your interviews how Greg Mortensen, with his book now out there all over the place, this idea that he's been promoting and allowing to be there, which is that if you educate a girl, she doesn't necessarily go off to make more money to like benefit herself. She'll come back to her village because she wants to help the people. So that's another unique thing that they're finding globally among women. If you help a woman or empower a woman, she's not going to just say, oh, okay, this is good for me, and now I'm going to go. She's going to bring that back into like, how can I help all the ones that I love? Now, again, this is not for everyone. This is for the women who are cultivating this inside of them. And of course, I'm sure you've heard many, many other wonderful ways that the collaborative beehive wonder of women being able to work together, and the pitfalls of that, of course, too.
Right. Say something about the beehive work, the strengths and the weaknesses of that leadership style.
Well, I've been thinking about the beehive a lot lately. It started because when the work and the networking I've done with women, more women come in, they volunteer their time, and when we're doing something together, it actually sounds like a beehive to me. It's the work of women all together. Some are building, and some are loading, and some are directing, and then some are singing, and some are dancing, and it's got this hum to it. And I like the metaphor of it, because somewhere you do need some leadership. Like, for instance, in the beehive I'm in, I'm probably considered a queen of that hive, but in reality, the queen bee is laying eggs like crazy. She's serving. And so it's, how can we break down a hierarchy? Now, if we break it down altogether, it's kind of like a lie. I think it is. We want to think so collaboratively that there's no hierarchy at all, but yet there always is something of that. But it's how we deal with hierarchy. It's who thinks they are what that is been our issue, been our problem. So if the queen bee knows she's there to serve the hive, and the worker bees, as they're called, these are all like weird definitions from science. I don't think they think these things. I think we need the worker bee. It's like, actually, you call yourselves worker bee, look at me, I'm laying eggs like crazy. So this agreement that we would work together in the hive, that it's a different kind of hierarchy, because it's everybody's roles or what they give best at are coming forward, and they're all working for this collective hive, going out into the flowers, coming back and making the honey, feeding all the people. And no one can do that by themselves. And so, like, if there needs to be a flying away, because another queen feels like, yeah, they can fly away, and they take people with them, and they swarm. And, you know, so we can make lots of different hives, but really we've got to think of the one beehive, that it's part of that together. And in ancient times, the bee mind was from the ancient goddess, and she has something to teach us right now. And it's a very, very sad moment, of course, with the bees dying right now, that we may need to learn how to do this pollination of life and flowers and things where we understand just how valuable all of this is.
Right. Do you see that there is a redefining of the traditional definition of leadership? In that, just with this particular working model that you've mentioned so far, it seems that what's unique to women can actually bring some redefinition to the traditional idea of leadership.
Yes, there's a lot of redefining to occur. And I think maybe this is a good time to talk about where we know women's leadership and where it's hurt us, where it hasn't been working. And so where it hasn't been working in the places of competition, jealousy, envy, abuse, biting, gossip, power over, the places where you're not lifting anybody up, you're making sure they stay in their place, you are labeling, you are having someone not be seen because you ignore them altogether because they're not important to you, not allowing a voice to be had. I mean, these places we know, and they don't just happen between men, they happen between women. And they happen because maybe there's a hierarchy of I'm important, you're not. I'm the presenter, you're the audience. We got to break this down. Break it down so that we have more value in every being. Every living being has intrinsic value to be respected. And the word respect means to look again. And when we look again, reminds me that when I was at making way for the feminine, for the benefit of the world community in Jaipur, we had a group of women together, and it was for visionary leadership. There were men there too. And there was a woman, we were making lots of noise, and I was, in the presentation, there was lots of noise to be had. And the woman who was in the bathroom, in India, and if you go in any bathroom, there is a woman taking care of the entire bathroom the whole time. She was so curious that she began to look inside, like, what is going on in here? And we pulled her in. And, it could cause her trouble, could maybe cause her to lose her job, It's like, come in with us. And I had a microphone, and I was like, we're talking about women's leadership, and we're talking about, like, what you envision for this world. And then we put the microphone to her. What do you envision? And right away, this woman who, we couldn't, sometimes you can't see people when we label them, when we, here she was, who knows who she was in her greatness. And she's like, I would want education for every woman. I would want every woman to be respected. See, she has a voice, she has wisdom, but not when we have all these other things going on, when we don't even see the people, because there's no opportunity for their greatness to be seen by us. So, the unhealthy women's leadership is what keeps us afraid on multiple different levels to even come forward with our leadership. And so now, this cultivation of healthy women's leadership, it means that we have to face some of those shadows, I didn't hardly get into them, but, you get a sense of what they are there. We face those so that we can remake, re-envision, re-inspire, reset this old, deep pattern to allow, because when women are seen, respected, known, loved, heard, have a voice, collaborate, have the shared relationship, know their beautiful holy selves, it's a beautiful world. Women are happy, and when women are happy, men are happy, and children are happy, and life is happy. But if you crush, annihilate, dominate, oppress the spirit of woman, and it's happened, and it's happening, and it's happened, we have a very miserable world, and we have a world that's looking at human extinction. Mm-hmm. So this is it. This is our time. If there isn't a time, we have none. Mm-hmm. This is it now. To see if we have the courage, and it's going to take courage. And courage, the word courage is kori. Kori is heart. Do we have the heart, the strength, the fierceness, the gentleness, the vulnerability, the rawness, to find our way, to rebuild something that we don't even know what it looks like yet? Are you on?
Wow. Well, now we are looking at something that we don't even know what it looks like yet.
Yes, exactly.
I was hoping you would tell me what it looks like.
I know. Well, I live in it. I do live in it. Mm-hmm. And I'm privileged to live in it, and I know that I'm privileged. And whenever we have privilege, for me, when I have privilege, it is my service and duty to make sure that I share and give out however that goes. Mm-hmm. And so I do live inside of that. I've had 24 years inside of women's. I've reaped great beauty and goodness, and I've been steeped like a tea bag. Mm-hmm. And so I know it exists. Mm-hmm. It's right in my bones. Yeah. And so I've been looking at that question, because sometimes I travel out in the world and I go, that's not where it is. Mm-hmm. And so I've had to kind of go back and go, well, actually, I do know what healthy women's leadership is. And so in that place, it definitely getting rid of the tyranny of perfection. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, let me back up. It isn't actually about getting rid of anything. Mm-hmm. It's acknowledging the wholeness that cannot be broken, that cannot ever be annihilated, mm-hmm. and to no longer fear that it ever can. Right. That is innate, and that happens by some very deep work. Mm-hmm. Whether it's our deep spiritual journey or deep personal growth, we have to face every demon, every part that we haven't loved. And the hardest work is loving what we don't judge as lovable within us. Mm-hmm. And from that place, we don't insist that the world be all good or nothing. We take it as it is. Right. We take it as it is. Yeah.
The deep work of actually getting into our inner wisdom, and this is something that we as women, as individuals, can work on. Now, you've been very good at creating movements. How do we now connect the women who have been doing this deep work and who are living in women's leadership and have an idea of it, maybe not what it looks like, but how do we connect all these women?
Okay, you're at a passionate question of mine, and this is the leaning into the not knowing and into the mystery and trusting that the next step is going to be there, and we're all trusting that step. I mean, because we have nothing else to go on. Yeah. So things begin to show up, and then we pay attention to what shows up. So I've been asking that question for a while. That's really why I went to travel to see Kathy when I spoke to you about that. And so is it social networking? Is it name? Is it a certain group that we all decide to get behind? I don't think so, because it takes us seeing and knowing one another. It might be Skyping, but we've got to have this like visceral. So I think what we're going to see next, I guess, this is a total guess, but I can already feel it coming up, is that there's going to be multiple ways that this is going to rise. And because we're so many, we're massive, 6.5 billion people, it will rise in different forms. and those forms will pull and magnetize people in. And then those forms will also start to recognize one another for what is there. So, for instance, what is the Women for Women International? There are multiple ways already that you can kind of come through. But how are we going to coordinate ourselves? Well, first we've got to trust that coordination is already happening, even if we can't see it right now. That there is something that is moving, not every single woman, but women who are going this direction, and that that even if we're 1%, I mean that seems really small, but looking at a whole population, that it doesn't take much to tip. So don't lose hope. That's the first thing. 1% is all right, but that can do it. 2%, great. So from this place, for me personally, I've been thinking about this because I've been thinking. Creating either Daughters of the Earth or Women Rise Up or some way. Now, I knew that couldn't just be social-based because it's to hands, dance, ceremony. These things are important and vital, rites of passage for our young ones, mentoring. So it's going to be in our own communities, which is why the Red Tent Temple movement, I think, is going to be one effective place. It's one out of many places, but as it crops up in a community, women go, oh yes, there's a red tent, then we can talk. Well, what do we need to know from each other? To technology, like for me, fire, and we need sort of like this connection place. So it starts in the local, getting to support your local, then moving out there and finding out who's in your state, then moving out, finding who's in your country, then moving out and finding who's in your world. And from that database, what I was thinking, and it might happen just because, and it might already be happening, you know, what are our writings, our music, our activists, you know, our actions, what are the things we're inspired at? So we have a hub, and from the hub, we can start to resource one another. And these things are not in form yet, you know. I mean, maybe they are. I mean, Braveheart Women, I think, is attempting to do that, but then they say it's sort of conscious television. No, that's not it. You know, I mean, Braveheart, I don't want to put it down, but I think we're going to keep reworking these forms until we feel the heart and spirit, till women behind it get behind, going, okay, go there. You know, and from that place, I think then we can start these. I'm thinking with the Transformational Leadership Institute that I'm envisioning, maybe we have training places and women come into different places, but I'm thinking they'll bring some men with them, so that the men will also learn, and then when they go back to a village, they can actually back up and protect and support a woman when she's coming forward with what's this new paradigm, because change does not come easily, as we know. That's why we have so many wars and so many difficulties. So this is not going to be easy, or maybe it is. Maybe we're just ready.
Well, I mean, this is exactly,
labor is not easy.
This is exactly why it's a new paradigm, because it doesn't work on polarity. So the fact that men and women could together work.
We need to do that.
Right.
We must do that.
Yes.
We must do that. But I had a dream a long time ago, and it's really guided me a lot. And the dream was very telling. It was, in the dream, there was a cave that had a lip. And we could see out into this beautiful, lush green world, and men and women were in the cave together. And there was this sort of, like whisper that moved like a hush hush, and then it was like, oh my God, it's time for this change to happen, and women must go out and lead. And there was, you know, among us, there was like thousands of us in there, like, oh my God. And then there was the next thing was like, oh, well, we've forgotten how to do it. We forgot. I mean, this is not the dream. This took place in the 80s. So the dream was like, well, how do we do it? How do we do it? How do we lead? And another woman said, oh, we just go out there like the men, and we just go out there. Just go from the cave and go out, you know? And so, and women said, okay, let's do it like the men. Let's just go out. And suddenly, in this voice, in this dream, I became a voice. And it could be many women because I is many and I is you. And I said, no, that's not our way. We've forgotten. Our way is different than that way. We've got to remember our way. And so we formed this beautiful birth canal between us. And in the birth canal, the women were getting birthed out, but they were struggling. Like some of them didn't want to go, and some of them were like, yes, I'm willing to go, but it's hard to go. And they were birthed out into the world through that power of not just the like, yes, blind, yes, blindly, and not the like, it's going to be easeful and easy, but the sense of, we know labor. Any woman who's come in, I mean, it can be ecstatic birth if we want, sure, that's possible. But labor is labor. Contractions are contractions. Resistance is resistance. I don't want to be born as part of it, but then coming out, going through that process is the way of our power until we know that we're fully supported by other women in that birth canal to be birthed into our power, to lead and to be supported by something that holds us always. It's not the Lone Ranger, you know.
Well, Lisa, it's been wonderful hearing about all of your experiences and insights. Now, for our last few moments here, share with us some of your final thoughts for the audience and for the future generations.
That's such a big question. We've had these great conversations while this has been off. So I was just speaking while it was off around this place I began talking about, which is knowing healthy women's leadership in my bones. And I was saying that there is a place where my daily life is spent where we are not afraid as women of our rage, of our terror, of our grief, of our ecstasy, our joy, that we don't just have concepts or ideas of how something that is going to work, but that we're rolling up our sleeves and being in our sweat and our tears and our working together and our healing. We're in a healing process, and that healing means that we are braving territories there that require us to do the dark work, the shadow work of what has stopped us as women from being in this collaboration and this partnership. Because if we just have an idea, it's great to collaborate, and then we run into all the old stuff, we're not going to go very far. Somebody's going to take somebody down like that, you know, kill the queen. But if we follow, so one of the things I spoke to you, that I thought one of the most important things, I do 5 bodies of work, and I'm not going to get too much into them, but they sound interesting. But the Women's Belly and Womb Conference, that was to get women back honoring and respecting their knowing and their wise wisdom through their belly, loving their bellies. Oh my goodness, what we go through with our bellies. Simply come home. Come home. This is your power, your seat of your power, your knowing, your gut knowing. So come home and honor yourself as a woman and all the different journeys we've been a part of, whether you have children, whether you don't, whether they were taken, whether you decided never to have them, our whole womb journeys, all the different things with that. So that's a place of our power. Priestess Path was to help with the help rediscover and own the archetype of the priestess, and that is the woman who has on her spirit path, who has her spiritual gifts that she wants to now give in service to the world and her community. And then another initiative was the Women in Power initiative, which I think I'll speak of last. The Daughters of the Earth gathering that takes place once a year, inviting women leaders to come together, and also inviting us to come together in ceremonies, in council, in inspirations and visions that we have to really support one another, and to do this from multiple diverse communities, and to encourage that diversity to come in. And the Red Tent Temple movement, which was to build a red tent temple in every city, village, and town. It was like a pretty interesting initiative, but it's happening. It's now in 21 states and 4 countries, and it's simply a woman taking time in one day to support other women on their journey. And you can contact me. It's at www.alisastarkweather.com, and I know that's hard to spell, but it's Alisa, A-L-I-S-A, and then like Stark, which is strong, S-T-A-R-K, and Weather, WEATHER.com, and that means strong weather, by the way. So from that place, I'm going to go back to Women in Power, which has to do with resetting the victim-perpetrator circuitry, because we have been very disempowered over time, and we have this sort of ancient predator-prey psyche of, eat or be eaten, and that sometimes we have given up something of the predator. Why? Good reason. Because predator in this model, perpetrator victim, predator prey, we never wanted to be like the one who abused us or abused the world, and we made a secret vow never, ever, ever to be like them. But when we did that, we lost out on part of us, part of our large power that actually can be in that big power. It's interesting, women, we hang these snakes and bears and claws, and we have this reverence towards the predator, but we don't like to be thought of as one. And so in this place, we went to prey. We sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater and ended up with prey, and there we are as victims, or there we are as healthy prey, giving our gifts away to that which will be beneficial, but we get burnt out by that. We give our life force energy away and away. So this is a way in a women's initiation held by 30 women for 30 women to go through and actually step more into the places they feared being, so that they no longer need to be afraid of them. And though I have too short of a time to explain that, it's working. Women are feeling like they've gone to the darkest place now and out the other side, so they feel innately safer inside, and they have owned what they have feared to own.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Alisa. I think that we've been talking more than just about women and women's leadership, but really you go into a spiritual path of inner deep work that all of us need to do more of. And thank you for that. It's been in of itself, this conversation, a spiritual one.
Wonderful.
Thank you.